Greetings, netizens of YouTube. It has come to my attention that the Society for Professional Journalists Airplay Gamergate event was held in Florida yesterday. I'm going to outline my impressions on the event, give you my opinion of the main characters, and address where I think Gamergate goes from here, directly. As a personal disclaimer, I generally take a neutral to anti-Gamergate position. To sum up, I'm supportive of ethics in journalism. As a journalist, it's as clear as crystal that ethics are a serious issue in the industry, but this is mainly due to the interests of global corporations and their influence on editors and journalists, rather than the odd journalist sleeping with the subject of their story or being part of some secret mailing list. Aside from this, many of you will be familiar with the fact that I dislike the lazy anti-social justice narrative that comes with Gamergate. I would urge those of you who haven't seen my video explaining what social justice means to watch it. However, I remain a proud gamer and I refuse to tarnish all Gamergate supporters with the same brush concerning the criticisms levelled against the movement. And there are issues with which I find myself in agreement with those that identify as Gamergate. That said, there is a distinct difference between ordinary gamers in the movement and the political and financially motivated agenda of some of those who claim to speak for it. I ask those of you who are against Gamergate to consider those well-intentioned gamers, just as I ask those of you who support Gamergate to consider a more critical view of the intentions of some of those individuals who talk in Gamergate's name. The SPJ Airplay event was originally meant to be an opportunity to explain the issues raised by Gamergate to a wider mainstream audience of journalists who had little background knowledge. Two opposing sides, a pro and anti-Gamergate panel, would debate the issues raised by Gamergate. For some within the movement, this was finally an opportunity to get the message out to a mainstream audience that Gamergate is about ethics in journalism and not about misogyny or sexism by hate mob. The elders of Gamergate initially showed a lot of interest both in setting the record straight and being part of the panel. One gator, shall we say, was particularly keen but failed miserably to receive support in a straw poll to attend. On the anti-side, there was a realization that attending would not bring any benefits and would provide respectability to the gathering. Alongside this, few individuals made a career as anti-Gamergaters, so there was little incentive for self-promotion either. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and there was some falling out on the Gamergate side as individuals such as Oliver Campbell, a former gaming journalist, dropped out after an emotional outburst amid accusations that event organizer Mike Koretsky was narrowing the terms of debate. Gamergate argued whether attendance was worth it, with some implying that those attending would be selling the movement out if they did not emphasize the anti-feminism, anti-social justice and cultural Marxism narrative. In the end, a debate which was meant to be conducted by journalists turned out to have 6 from a panel of 9, which consisted of 6 Gamergaters and 3 neutrals. 3 Gamergate journalists came from right-leaning publications, with one, Kathy Young, representing a libertarian perspective. The inverted commas against SPJ prospective president Lynn Walsh was a somewhat gratingly toned liberal. Derek Smart, a famous, or possibly infamous, games developer, was ostensibly on the against side, but had clear sympathies for Gamergate. In the event, it transpired that Koretsky evened up the pro-Gamergate majority. The morning debate got off to a slow start and was beset by audio problems. Indeed, one can see that audio was out of sync throughout the transmission. It didn't help that the main stars were due to appear in the afternoon session. There was some substance to the debate, which was concerned with ethics in journalism, and Koretsky did ask the occasional incisive question when not enjoying the sound of his own voice, and initially showed some charm. Mark Sebb appeared to know how to handle him. Interesting points were debated, such as whether and how opinion or more factual news pieces can be identified. Everybody agreed that journalists should clearly label opinion pieces so that readers are able to separate factual-based news from biased opinion pieces. The Gamergate side also tried to highlight the success of the movement by listing its achievements. The greatest reaction was caused when Bukhari from Breitbart mentioned that the Escapist magazine had improved their ethics policies as a result of Gamergate, causing what Koretsky quipped as a golf clap in the audience. The morning session made me wonder just how many journalists even bother to attend. Koretsky mentioned at one point that there was another conference being held in a neighbouring room, and when the camera panned back, the auditorium was mostly empty, although those that did come were clearly pro-Gamergate. However, when the hollow echo of the claps of the morning session subsided, I was left with the impression that this was little more than a member of an organisation using a conference room at his organisation's headquarters containing a panel that are marginal both in terms of journalism and Gamergate. Koretsky's grandstanding also appeared to be an effort to make himself look aloof and somehow more representative of the average person than the panellists involved. The afternoon session was about how the media should cover Gamergate and brought out some of the big guns of the movement. The sterile atmosphere of the morning session was abandoned as the real stars turned up. Based Mom, Hoff Summers from the Enterprise Institute, was good enough to explain her Gamergate nickname, interpreting it as somebody who is grounded rather than cool, and referred to how opponents found it sinister. My view is that Based Mum is a mind-numbingly cringeworthy nickname for which I honestly feel bad on the part of gamers. If you are trying to vanquish the stereotype of Gamergate being a movement of American teenage boys, calling one of the elders Based Mom is not the way to do it. Milo Yiannopoulos is the closest thing Gamergate has to celebrity, and he was on early form, rattling off a dizzying number of talking points, and was clearly coordinating the Gamergate afternoon panel's drive to raise the spectre of feminism. However, Milo was forced onto the back foot early on when Koretsky stated that feminism wasn't part of the debate and got Walsh to back up his point. Gamergate, he argued, needed a concrete message, and ethics, feminism and other political issues were too large a message to be digested by the mainstream media. Interestingly, Milo backed down without much resistance, but not before Koretsky trapped him into making a fool of himself. All the morning session panellists agreed that news and opinion should be clearly marked. Milo, however, was pressed by Koretsky about Breitbart and whether it had such a divide, to which Milo suggested that such a divide was unnecessary because people automatically know the difference between opinion and news. He then adopted the absolutist style that usually works well for him in front of a sympathetic audience, claiming that Gamergate didn't care about that issue. This led Koretsky to ask how Milo could speak on behalf of the movement on this point. It was an obvious error by Milo to imply dismissal of one of Gamergate's arguments regarding bias and transparency. Claiming to know what Gamergate wanted on this issue didn't help. For those who want to verify or to revel in this scene, it's about on the 25-minute mark in the afternoon session link that I provided in the low bar. Indeed, Koretsky's criticisms of Milo for hogging attention or for not having a compact message supported by Walsh led to Milo abandoning the debating position that Gamergate was anything other than a story about press ethics. He must have felt on safer ground. But even this wasn't enough for Koretsky and Walsh, since Milo stated that a journalist covering Gamergate for its anniversary should speak to the editors of Kotaku and others accused of breaching press ethics, while according to Koretsky, a Gamergate anniversary piece should focus on members of the movement. Milo also stated that the press should be forced to become comfortable with interviewing people by email, when I am utterly convinced in a different situation Milo would say the complete opposite, on the basis of the fact that interviewing unverified anonymous people over the internet will not make for an accurate news piece. This is basic journalism 101. Although the gutter press would be happy with such low journalistic standards. It seemed as if Milo, an otherwise formidable debater, underestimated Koretsky and was eventually forced to concede to being glib with his points. Koretsky also made some impassioned interventions to Gamergate, asking them to step outside of the gaming bubble if they truly want to enter the mainstream, following some heckling from the crowd, who felt that he was targeting Milo for excessive criticism. Indeed, Koretsky may have felt obliged to take a more critical stance on Gamergate due to the lack of balance between the panels. However, the fact is that he dominated the discussion rather than structured the discussion and let the debaters say their piece. Then the proceedings were interrupted by an all too predictable bomb scare, and that was it. The debate continued in the condemned house across the street, free from the prying eyes of cameras. I'm confident it was more stimulating and honest than on stage. So where does Gamergate go from here? At this point, my honest opinion about the movement as a whole is that it has run out of steam. Unless a new hashtag is created or a new burning issue is found, it will slowly fade. If I was a part of Gamergate, I would drop the political part of the narrative and petition John Bain to represent the movement, or find a similar figure who enjoys widespread respect to advocate for ethics and to represent gamers' interests. If I was providing tips to the self-interested elders, it would be to mumble platitudes about the good intent behind the idea of taking part in this, while adopting a vocal stance about the role of Koretsky, and to shore up the movement by admitting to the radicals that they were right about his malign intent. Oh yes, and it would probably do to score some points to attack Lynn Walsh. The real question for those who have used Gamergate is, if the movement fades away now, will it affect their audience, and to what extent? Any half-intelligent anti-feminist channel content provider may be wondering the same thing. My view is that they need not worry. While some may return to playing their games, many will still need an outlet to express the frustration and disenfranchisement they feel. It's a pity that this genuine feeling of powerlessness that many ordinary people feel is being directed into hatred of feminism and social justice. The opinion piece-based entertainment of YouTube channels masquerading as information will continue, and the snake oil salesmen will continue to peddle their wares.